Having just been to Japan and being notorious for overpacking, I wanted to share with you my ultimate Japan packing list and all of the lessons that I've learned from my trip, and trust me, there's a lot. Let's dive into it.
The next station is Tokyo.
Hey guys, Hwang here, and today we are going to go through everything that you need to know to pack for Japan. We'll walk through both the essentials and the more niche things that you could easily forget. Let's pack. First off, luggage space. So if you haven't seen the meme for packing for Japan, it looks a little something like, yeah, so it's a meme and kind of sarcastic, but kind of true at the same time. So I did 8 days in Japan as part of my 14-day Asia trip, and I packed everything into this tiny mono suitcase and a backpack. Honestly, it kind of worked. I left around half the suitcase free in preparation for buying things, which was good because I did buy a lot of things, but it was mainly... Oh, it's a Kirby! Oh, it's the
that's one. Oh, wow.
What the? What?
Wow.
No way. No, it's crazy. No
Wow.
way. So yeah, it was mostly a bunch of small things, but I did manage to fill half a suitcase worth of claw machine prizes and gachapon prizes. So in short, if you're planning on doing any level of shopping, you may need more room than that. And if anyone wants a review on the mono suitcase, then let me know because I have thoughts. What people often do is to check in a fairly large empty suitcase so that you will have all of that available space for all of your purchases in Japan. If and when you stop by some of the famous Japanese stores like Don Quixote, you will probably come back with more than just a large suitcase worth of stuff just from that store alone. Personally, I would recommend at a minimum having about half a suitcase worth of space available, but you could also purchase a suitcase in Japan and it can be much cheaper there depending on where you're coming from, so that's also worth considering. The other thing that's worth considering though is how you are going to get around with all of that luggage. Japan does have services to send your luggage from wherever you are to basically wherever you're going. This is to make it easier for you to get around, say taking the train from Tokyo to Osaka. You don't have to lug all of your luggage onto the train itself. However, the downside to this is that the luggage often arrives a day or two after you do, so it only really works well if you are staying for long durations of time. The reason this exists is that there is just simply not enough room to pack all of your suitcases and things onto the bullet train. On the bullet train already, if you are bringing a large like check-in style suitcase, then you will already have to reserve a special seat with enough room for that luggage. Normal suitcases will fit overhead, but not if you have multiple of them. Walkways can be quite steep and the train stations have a lot of stairs. So that makes for moving around with all of these rolling bags and things a major pain. All of these are things to consider. I would also bring a backpack or a day bag that you can bring around, as Japan typically does not have free bags. Bags cost money in Japan, so if you have a bag with you or you're carrying a backpack that you can just toss your purchases into, it will make your life a lot easier. Okay, enough about luggage space. Next, let's talk about electronic devices and charging them. Japan's outlets are similar to the US and you can get away without any special converters or adapters. However, there are some differences that you will need to know. Japan's outlets are typically the A-type outlet with the two flat parallel prongs, and there are a lot of outlets in Japan that do not have the third grounding prong. The voltage in Japan is 100 volts versus the USA's 120 volts, so check if your device is able to handle the different voltages. The frequency is between 50 and 60 Hz, while the standard in the US is 60 Hz. Phone chargers typically should work fine in Japan, and you shouldn't have any issues there. However, if your device does require the third prong, such as larger devices like laptop chargers, you may have a harder time in some places and you may need an adapter for that. Many newer hotels do have those charging clocks with the USB ports built into it, so those could come in handy as well if you need. Moving on to our next item, this is the ultimate Japan packing guide, so we have to include this. The next item is your passport. That's it. Don't forget it. Also check if you need a visa for your visit depending on which country you're coming from. If you're coming from the United States, you won't need a visa. However, you still will need to register and do immigrations online before entering Japan. The next thing you may need to pack is a SIM card. You'll want a mobile data plan, which will make your time in Japan much easier, as you can look things up and live translate menus and things without the need to rely on Wi-Fi. So you could purchase a SIM card in advance. But I go much more into depth on this and plenty of other things in my 10 things you need to know before going to Japan video, so check that out. Next, let's talk cash. In Japan, cash is king, and you will still need cash as the country still widely uses cash, though credit cards are becoming more widely adopted. You still will want to have at least some cash on hand, especially if you are traveling outside of Tokyo, as many of the shrines and temples along with street vendors don't take card. Though if you are staying inside of Tokyo itself, you could get away with not having cash, but I'd still have some on hand. The cheapest way to exchange currency is usually at home, where you get the best exchange rate, and typically you can exchange currency through your bank. With some banks, you can call the bank and request the exchange, or do it online and have it mailed to either your house or to a local bank for pickup. Personally, I would exchange at least around $200 to $300 to have that on hand. Having a money purse or a coin pouch will come in handy as well, as you will end up with a lot of coins, especially if you're going to the plethora of gacha machines that they have throughout the country, as they only take 100 yen coins. We actually won a coin purse from one of the gachapon machines, which was quite convenient. Alright, next, let's talk credit cards. Again, credit cards are becoming more and more widely adopted, and I used mine for the vast majority of the purchases I made in Japan, but again, not every place takes credit card. Even better, if you have a credit card without international transaction fees, use that. Notify your bank in advance of your travels if it requires this, so that your card won't get locked out while you're over there. Though most credit cards with a chip nowadays don't require you to do this anymore. Pro tip, if you're making a credit card transaction in Japan, sometimes it will prompt you if you want to charge the transaction in Japanese yen or your home currency like US dollars. And you may be tempted, if you're from the US, for example, to pick US dollars because you're more familiar with that, but don't pick that. Always do Japanese yen, as it will give you a better conversion rate than the US dollar option, and you can save some money. If you don't have a card without international transaction fees and you're making large purchases and you don't want to deal with those fees, then you can bring a debit card and withdraw cash from ATMs as needed. Japan has ATMs all over, and they're very easily accessible, including in nearly every single convenience store and train station. And they're easy enough for foreigners to use as well. Alright, now let's talk clothes. What should you pack? Well, Japan does have all 4 seasons, and we'll focus on Tokyo for the sake of this packing guide. In the spring in Tokyo, from around March to May, the weather goes from an average high of around 57 to around 74, all of which fairly in the comfortable-ish range. In the summer, we're looking at a high of 79 to 89 for June through August, which can be pretty hot. Fall starts off at 82 degrees Fahrenheit, going down to 63 degrees Fahrenheit, bringing the hot temperatures back down to cooler weather in September through November. And the winter is surprisingly consistent, with a high in the low 50s for December through February. When I went in the summer, it was all shorts and t-shirts, and it was hot. When I was there in December, I had thermals and layers and a winter jacket. In the colder months in particular, you do want to be able to layer because it can be fairly cold and windy outside, but as soon as you step indoors anywhere, it can get really hot and humid, like really fast. So you want to be able to be flexible with your layers in the winter. But in the winter, I do highly recommend thermals. It can get very cold. My personal recommendation for bringing clothes is to bring the essentials and then to buy clothes there as needed. Especially if you're staying in Tokyo, you have a lot of access to really convenient stores, and things do tend to be a lot cheaper there, even in major stores like Uniqlo. So if you're already planning on doing some clothes shopping, then pack a bit less and wear the things that you buy to save space. Uniqlo also has really good thermals, just saying. It also can rain in pretty much any month in Japan, though November through February sees the least amount of rain. So you could pack a small umbrella if the weather is looking like it's going to rain a lot, or you just bring a rain jacket. Or the easier option is probably just to buy an umbrella there should you need it. And one thing to know in Japan is that they love to use those cheap, clear white umbrellas. And if you buy one there and you leave it on an umbrella rack in front of a restaurant or a store, I've heard that people can take them either accidentally or willingly. Why? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but I have heard a lot of stories of people losing their cheap white clear umbrella. But it's just something to keep in mind if you do buy an umbrella there. As for shoes, do you need more than one pair of shoes? I personally don't think so if you have one really good pair of sneakers, and I highly recommend getting a really comfortable pair because Japan is all about walking and you will be walking a lot. I bought a pair of On shoes, specifically the On Cloud Surfer shoes, and the shoes really made a big difference in keeping my feet from being as sore as they would have been otherwise. But man, we walked like 20 to 30,000 steps per day. So my feet were still sore, just less sore than they would have been. For shoes along with clothes, I would suggest bringing solid quality items and then buying the rest as needed because again, things are fairly affordable in Japan. Next tip, bring a water bottle because you will need a lot of water for all that walking. Moving along, do you need a swimsuit? Here's an interesting one. If you're going to swim at either the beach or the hotel pool or a water park, then yes, you do. But if you're just going to an onsen or a hot spring, you won't. What? That's right. In Japan, the onsen is split by gender and you typically aren't allowed to go in with swimwear. When you enter, you split up by gender and go into a locker room, change out of everything, and then go through a shower, and then from there go into the onsen itself. It can be a bit strange for foreigners, but that's just how it is over there. In the onsen, you will also need to cover up any tattoos with patches, so that might be something that you need to bring. Onsens or hot springs do sometimes have small patches for you to cover up small tattoos, but they typically don't have larger patches for larger tattoos. Some other things you want to consider bringing are hand sanitizer because many restrooms don't have soap, and a hand towel because many bathrooms don't have paper towels or hand dryers. Again, why? I'm not sure. For such a clean and hygienic country, this is kind of shocking. Newer modern places typically will have soap and some means of drying your hands, but older places, temples, shrines, and even some places in the city like Tokyo Station won't have those things. So you may want to bring your own. A personal pack of tissues is also good to have as well. All right, the next thing is insect repellent. And let me tell you, Japanese mosquitoes are no joke. They bite and they bite hard. While typically you can't bring insect repellent on a plane or something, you should purchase it from the pharmacy as soon as you get there. Mosquitoes are out pretty much every month in Japan, except for the extreme coldest ones, typically December through February. But even then, there's still a small chance depending on where you go. The same thing with sunblock, especially in the summer months. For toiletries, you typically don't need to bring too much, as most hotels will provide you with shampoo, conditioner, and even combs and toothbrushes if you forget yours. But again, if you need any of these things and the hotel doesn't have it, hit up a convenience store or Don Quixote and you'll be able to get it there. Moving on to camera equipment, and if you're anything like me and you love taking photos, then you'll want to bring a nice camera and a bunch of lenses. But what lenses should you bring? For me, I brought all of my camera equipment inside this backpack, which held a decent amount of stuff, but at the same time I did leave a lot behind because I was trying to pack light. My most commonly used lens was, unsurprisingly, the 24-70 focal length. My second most used lens was a wide-angle 16-35. I did have a 28-200 lens on me for a bit more reach and occasionally use that, but having a wider aperture lens, especially for those night shots in Japan, is really important. For the plane ride and for public transportation, you may want to bring a travel pillow, and while some people like these, I personally hate the space that it takes. So I bring a inflatable neck pillow, which takes up a lot less space when I don't need it. For snacks, I would only bring enough for your plane ride there. Why? Because Japan is the snack capital of the world. Go to any convenience store like 7-Eleven when you get there and you will find the most amazing Japanese snacks that you will end up missing so very much when you leave Japan. Trust me, their 7-Elevens are nothing like what we have in the US. They're so much better. Next, bring some face masks, as in Japan, they still use them fairly regularly, so it's useful to have. Here's an interesting one. Pain meds. The night version of, say, Tylenol and other medications that make you sleepy is prohibited to bring into Japan. While you aren't likely to get stopped for bringing these things in, on the official website for Japan, it does say that medications containing pseudoephedrine, aka the stuff that makes you drowsy, is prohibited, along with pain relievers containing more than 100 milligrams of ibuprofen. So in short, just double check before you bring your whole medicine cabinet with you. And you can go and purchase a lot of these medications at the pharmacy security when you get there as well. One more pro tip is when you're packing, make sure to double check that you have all your hotels booked in advance, as finding a hotel last minute in Japan can be very difficult, especially in popular areas during peak seasons. Once you book your hotels, plan your routes in advance as well, so that you know if you're going to be going up a massive hill when you get there. This literally happened to me when we got there, and we got out of Shibuya Station and we ended up walking this massive hill, lugging all of our heavy suitcases and bags as we sweated our way to the top, only to realize that we could have taken a different path that avoided this hill completely. Japan is notorious for having a lot of stairs in their train stations and being very hilly, so that's just also something to keep in mind. And that's all you need for Japan. In all honesty, the conclusion that my group came to was that we all overpacked and could have easily bought items from Don Quixote, Uniqlo, etc. for cheap and have been able to bring all those things back as souvenirs if we hadn't brought so much excess stuff. I also stayed in a hotel with a washing machine, which made it very convenient not to need to bring too much clothes, but I still ended up making the mistake of bringing too much. The hotel itself was the Tokyu Stay Shibuya, in case you were wondering. Highly recommend. But pack light for Japan. It may feel like you're missing something, but as long as you have your passport and some money, you can pretty much get anything else you could need there for cheap, and it's totally worth it. So make sure you have room to buy lots of things, because you definitely will. So that's it for this video. Let me know what you would pack for Japan and what you would or would not bring in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.